Jesse Homestead, how the heck are you today? Beautiful day down here. Gonna be hot. It's beautiful. Well, today I'm starting off this series of what the heck is wrong with our food chain. And it's a long list, okay? But we're gonna start out going a step at a time. You got a lot of information coming out here, folks. It's gonna be a big series, okay? Because I'm gonna take you through the basics of where have we gone wrong here, okay? You're gonna learn what a farm's supposed to be, what true sustainability is. Okay, we're going to cover all those kind of topics. All right, it's going to give you a lot of food for thought. I am using notes. If you think about it for a minute, if you got a fairly complex job, and agriculture is more of a complex job than most like to admit if you're doing it right. Okay, but if your boss suddenly dropped that on you, I want you to teach a new guy everything you do. All right, you better sit down first and say, give me a couple of days to put this all together so that I can go through a step at a time and figure out exactly where we're at. And especially if you've got to tell them how not to do your job too. Okay, that's where it gets a little complex. So you're going to do the research and so forth to find out who's doing it, how are they doing it, and why is that the wrong way to do it. Okay. So, with all that being said, I got a lot of information, and we're going to take these one little section at a time, folks. Where? Okay, and that way you have what I'm wanting this to be is a pool of information that you can go back and refer to. All right, and so we're going to subtitle each one of these videos covering what topic it is, and that way you can go back and review it. All right, so let's get on with this, and we'll see you here in just a second. And hopefully you got yourself a cup of coffee. If not, there's some out in the kitchen. Feel free. And drag up a chair and let's talk about this a little bit. So really what we're going to look at first off in this video is two types of farms. We're going to be dealing with pastures, okay? But we're going to be talking about the two different ways that this is done. And we're also going to brush into a little bit on the feedlots, okay? So let's look at the types of farm you have. You have what they call a linear farm, okay? And a linear farm is basically this. Turn the ground, plant a seed, well, fertilize it, plant your seed, apply water, grow a crop. That crop can be corn, it can be grains of some sort, soybean, cotton, grass. Yeah, that's right. They use it for grass too. Okay? So under that kind of system, you got a lot of inputs out there. All right? You're going to have, if you're doing like pasture land, you're going to have to go out and bush hog it once your cattle get through it. You're going to have to turn it, at least light disc it. You're going to have to reseed it. You, depending on your area, may have to water it. You're going to have to fertilize, all these things. Okay, and we're going to be talking a lot about pastures, types of pastures. And you're going to hear me refer a lot to a deep-rooted pasture system, kind of like the old prairies. All right, there's a reason for that. Down deep in the soil is where the minerals are at. It comes from years of building that soil up. Those minerals are trapped down there. All right, your plants need to get to those minerals if your livestock is going to get to those minerals. Okay, because you're not going to see a bunch of cattle out here, or goats, or any ruminant animal with a shovel in her hooves digging down to get down to minerals. That is why you see a lot of mineral blocks being used. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Anyway, the industrial farming system is really linear. You know, put this in, put this in, put this in, put this in, and that's your end result. Okay. Uh, it is the system that a lot of grass-fed beef that you find in your stores is utilizing. And let me tell you the steps to this. Step one, take your pasture, overpopulate it with animals, let them overgraze it. Let them eat this thing down just about to dirt. Okay? Now, you're nutritionally beginning to starve that animal. They're hungry. Okay? When you overgraze the land, you got it chewed down to where you're not going to have much time in bush hogging and so forth. You move them onto a different pasture. Then you come in, you mow it, you disc it, you fertilize it, you seed it, apply water, repeat process. That's basically it. It's just linear. There you go. Okay. Problems with linears is they're short-rooted plants. Grass can grow a very long, deep root system. All right. So if you now have a short-rooted system, you have to supply the natural fertilizers, or actually unnatural fertilizers, to get any nutrients in that grass to speak of. Otherwise, it's going to take forever for that grass to grow. So you got to fertilize it. Okay? And these, these inputs cost money. They're going to get it back out of their price of their meat. These inputs also require a large carbon footprint. Okay, not very economically sound because you're out there a lot on your tractors and doing your thing. Not a good environmentally correct way to provide feed for your animals. Okay, that's number one. In previous videos, and I'll include it in this series of why you don't want to grain animals. Okay, even your chickens. You want to hold down the amount of grain going into your chickens and things of this nature, especially soy. And we'll get into it when we get into the chickens and so forth. But a lot of these same principles as far as pasture raised apply not only to ruminant animals, goats and cattle and things of this nature, but it also applies to pigs. It applies to chickens. Okay? A good, healthy pasture, a deep-rooted pasture, is good for all those animals. All right? You're going to learn more about that. Okay, so you got problems with that. Often the grasses are planted. You ready for this? Aren't really grass. Well, technically they are. One of the more popular ones is they plant wheat because they've got varieties of wheat that you can grow virtually all year long. So thus providing feed on that pasture all year long. All right? And of course, you get the benefit of being able to get the value added of being able to sell your beef as grass-fed, right? Because all the USDA says is that's what that animal eats. They also use it for hay too, They'll fertilize the heck out of their hay fields. Here you go. So, with all that, you got the wheat. They are beginning to go, that this is all grass-fed beef and so forth. And here's what you run into. And vegans, we'll be talking to you guys later. Usually when they're looking at statistics and research, that is being done via linear farms. That's where they get their grass fed, at these linear farms. And feedlots. All right? And they'll tell you that meat is just environmentally a bad way to go. From everything from manure buildup to the amount of nitrogen that's supplied to graze the grain that's being fed to these animals and the methane discharge from those animals. You ever had an upset stomach? Got a lot of gas? Cows are no different. You feed them up on grain and build acid up in those rumens. That cow gets gas, folks. All right? They'll come up and belch right in your face. First-hand experience, Omad She loved cucumbers. Loved them. Affects her much like it affects a human. Gives them gas. Okay? She'd belch a cucumber back up at you and it'd be like, whoo, but she loved them. All right? So, methane gas. All the environmentally unfriendly things that a vegan will tell you is the reason you shouldn't eat meat. All right? Or drink milk. Or eat cheese. Are off of this linear system and off of feedlot information. Lions, tigers, bears. Okay? You think they're getting misinformed? You bet they are. But not really. Because if you look how this stuff is being produced, that's how it's being produced. And it's causing all these problems. There you go. Okay. So a lot of times they look at, and when they say feedlot raised as opposed to grass-fed, you're getting some conflicting stories out there, and some research even says there's no difference. There's no real difference. You're thinking, wow, really? Yeah, but if you check it, okay, they are using feedlot information and linear farm, modern industrial agriculture farming techniques for raising grass-fed beef, which is bad. Almost as bad as a feedlot. All right? So there's where you get these contradictory, what's up with this? But then you throw into that mix research done on deep-rooted pasture-raised grass-fed beef. And the numbers change like day and night. Okay? It's the difference between industrial, and Joel Salatin puts it as best as anybody can. We think because we got a big brain and opposing thumbs, we can just change anything and make it work better and make it grow bigger, quicker, faster. Indeed, we can. But it's not better. Okay? It's not better. Nature has a way of, they've been dealing with cattle and ruminant animals for a long time. Nature knows how to deal with it and does a good job with it. All right? Man, not so much. We have screwed up more than we've fixed. All right? It's all about higher yields, okay, quicker yields, yada, yada, yada. So understand where this comes from. These linear farms, these industrial farms, even though they say, oh, it's grass-fed, all right, they don't tell you that this grass is not deep-rooted grass. It is shallow-rooted grass, and you're having to supplement with chemicals. Gee, I wonder why you end up with the same kind of beef, virtually. Okay? Like I said, when you compare the industrial grass-fed beef with the CAFOs, the contained feedlots, figures aren't that much different. Yeah. Like I said, when you change over to sustainable, that's where it gets crazy on them, and that's what they don't like saying. Especially the USDA don't really like that. It kind of screws up their marching orders. So let's get into sustainable farming. Number one, the term sustainable farming is not Monsanto's and Syngenta's and Bayer's idea of sustainable farming. Okay, sustainable farming is, can I maintain a pasture and put animals out there and they live if I don't have diesel fuel, if I don't have access to chemicals? Okay, will this take care of itself without me even being here? Okay, that's sustainability. It's going to keep going, folks. With minimal management, it's going to keep renewing itself. It's going to keep growing. It's going to keep going. Sustainability. So when you're talking, and although that term gets thrown around out here like crazy, sustainable is you don't have additional inputs to maintain what you have. That's simple. All right? If you can't run a tractor, a good sustainable operation may have a backup of, I've got a harness mule and I've bought some manual implements to hook up to that mule. And yes, I can still take care of putting in a crop. without diesel fuel. All right? Something to think about. Sustainable, though, is not linear. It's a circle of life. You have life, you have death, you have decay. That's what makes it sustainable. It's natural. Keep that in mind. It is the way nature builds soil. It's the way nature brings nutrients to the surface. The linear situation, without your inputs, you're done. Okay? It would take years and years and years for a linear pasture to ever get to where it is sustainable. That simple. The quality of that grass and so forth is going to fall off rapidly once you quit applying chemicals to it. So, if you're not running around spraying that stuff with ammonia, you're going to have a mess out there, is basically it. So, sustainable pastures require certain things. Okay? Needs that cycle of life. So, let's start in with what does a sustainable, deep-rooted pasture need? A wide variety of deep-rooted plants and grass. Average prairie has over 200 different varieties of plants and grasses out there. Minimum 200. Average linear farm plants maybe 3, sometimes monocrop things like wheat crops. All right. In a sustainable pasture, the more plants you can walk around and pull up and go, yep, look at this, I got this, and I got this, and I got this, and it grows with time. Birds come in, they eat some seeds off of your grass, they do a little poop to drop some seeds that they picked up maybe 10, 15 miles away from you. Here you go. Okay? Now I'm going to give you a tip. All right? How to build a deep-rooted pasture faster. They have a radish called a tubular radish, also nicknamed deer radish. It's sold at most places that sells food plots for deer hunters. This thing is a large white radish, very large. Okay, and this thing puts down a taproot, and it's an annual, folks. All right. It can, and it's an annual as far as this goes. If you let it go to seed, which if you're grazing the land isn't probably ever going to get to that point, but if you let it go to seed, it will reseed around it. But you're going to have to let that pasture stand. If you're using tubular radishes in a pasture, those are the ones that I would usually go for and say let it stockpile. Let it grow up for winter stockpile feeding. That's where it's going to grow seeds. It's going to replant itself. Good thing. But this large radish, and it is large, okay? And just like other radishes, you know how radishes will pop to the surface and have a large portion of it up on the surface. But its real secret's its taproot. This thing, in its first season, will often put down a taproot that's anywhere from 10 to 15 foot deep. That thing is like a boring machine. It gets down to those minerals, nitrogens, zincs, copper, things of this nature that are down deep in that soil. And that taproot grabs onto those minerals and sucks it up into the radish. Here's another neat thing about it. Cows, deer, you want to hunt deer? There you go. They love that stuff. They think it's like candy. They eat the tops off of that stuff like crazy. Okay? But this taproot goes down deep and gathers up the nutrients, the minerals in the soil. And of course gathers up the vitamins and transforms that into, different vitamins and minerals in the plant. The animals come along, they love the stuff, it's like candy, they eat the heck out of it. But the secret to that plant is the cycle of life. When it dies, first hard freeze, you're going to go out there, and a few days after the first hard freeze, that stuff's going to look like mush. You can take your finger and stick in it, and it's slimy mush. The radish decays quickly. Now, keep in mind, that taproot is went deep. It's drawn those minerals to the surface. Then it dies. It turns into mush. And it releases those minerals back out to that soil at the surface level. Put your sprayer away and leave the chemical based fertilizers at the supply house. You don't need it. You got radishes. You know what I'm saying? Natural way to do it. Good way to do it. And how do you develop that deep-rooted pasture? When that thing dies, the root dies too. You just bored a hole down 14 foot in your soil, even compacted soil. Guess what your grass can now do? They can use that hole. All right, got plenty of nutrients in it. Those roots want to shoot straight down there. Now you're starting to develop a deeper rooted grass system. You're developing a prairie, folks. Prairies hold up to droughts. Prairies hold up to, adverse conditions because they're deep rooted. All right, you go out to your average lawn that gets cut and so forth, mowed on a regular basis, it's got a shallow root. Okay, so whatever nutrients and minerals it's going to grab up are going to be grabbed up right there at the surface. You want them down deep where those minerals are stacked up over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You want them down there. You want them drawing those minerals to the surface. So death and decay is a big part of the cycle of a sustainable pasture. You want it to decay. You want it to have dead grass stomped into the ground. Okay? So that's one of the big things that you want. You want deep-rooted, wide variety of plants, grasses, and even trees. All right, and don't get out there and start pruning trees back, trying to make sure that the branches don't hang down low. Cows and goats love leaves, and they get nutrients from it. And the roots to those trees going to help break up compacted subsoil. Once again, allowing your roots to go deep. It helps with percolation of water during dry times if that soil is broke up. Because a lot of times your groundwater is going to be below that hard packed surface. So it also helps get the moisture back up into the soil so that the plants can use it. So deep rooted. Okay. You're looking for it to pull things down deep. Iron, copper, zinc, selenium, nitrogen. All those things are down there. You just need to get it up to the surface. That's how you do it. Deep-rooted pasture system. Secondly, you need death and decay. That's the next item in the agenda for a healthy pasture, a deep-rooted pasture. It's a big part of the cycle. Okay, it recycles all the nutrients stored in those plants. So a cow comes along and literally stomps the grass plant right into the mud, kills it. Okay. They are sloppy eaters. They'll take off a bite and half of it falls out of their mouths. That decays on the ground, builds nutrients. The death and decay of the pasture also builds microbial life. Microbes like to get underneath that decaying grasses and things of this nature, and that's a good environment for them to grow and multiply. All right. That brings worms. Worms are great little things. How many people have went down to the store and bought worm castings as a fertilizer? Great fertilizer, huh? To have a lot of earthworms, you need a lot of microbial life. So the decaying brings the microbes, which brings the worms, which brings fertilizer once again to that top level of your soil. All right? And the last part of this equation, for any healthy, deep-rooted pasture system, you're going to have large grazing animals. They're mandatory for a healthy environment. Mandatory. Okay? Because those animals are going to come through there, and they're going to eat, and they're going to go to the bathroom, and they're going to spread that all over the place. All right? If you use proper management techniques, you can use that to evenly distribute your fertilizers and so forth over your pasture system. And you can control how this is being done. Joel Salatin, he's got a technique where he talks about raising grass at the 3 levels: infant, teenage, and mature. Cows don't much care for mature. All right. And goats I refer to as 4-legged weed eaters. And that's really what they are. They would prefer to munch on the average weed than they do regular grass. So they really don't compete with your cattle, because cattle aren't real crazy about weeds. So if you intermix your grazing animals out there, son of a gun, you now have a weed eater who likes the weeds, chews it off the ground level too. I mean, they'll eat them suckers down to the dirt. And that allows your grass, that is a deep-rooted system, to populate that area again. Works. Okay, but you have to have all that stuff that's going on out there with the grazing animals. You want heavy cattle out there stomping around. Okay? You really do. Because what it does is it pushes that decayed minerals down, or decayed material down into the soil, kind of turns it a little bit, opens up bare spots. Now, you want to follow the principle of, you don't want mature grass, because when it goes stemmy, cows kind of turn up their nose at it. But if it's teenage grass, let's say it grows up 12 inches. You don't want that cow eating more than the top 6 inches of that grass. If it's 8-inch deep, 4 inches. That's all you want to take off. Half that plant. Here's the reason for it. Grass, when it hits that teenage spot, it grows in 2 directions. It grows the grass blade itself for photosynthesis, and it grows the root to get fertilizer and minerals. All right? That's the balance you want. You want that plant growing 2 directions, up and down. If you let them overgraze, or you mow it, these kind of things, guess what's going to happen? That plant's going to say, oh, Lord, we just lost our photosynthesis, or most of it. Let us stop root production and get back to blade or photosynthesis production. That root's going to stop growing. Okay? It's actually going to retract and take everything it's got and try to get that grass growing again. All right, look at your average lawn. You mow it, it rains. Hello, you go out and mow it again. Because everything that plant's got is going into growing that grass and not growing its root structure. So what you want to do is manage that. You want that root structure growing as well as the plant structure growing. That is done by management of how much of the top of that plant gets taken off. Maximum 50%. So, if you're dealing with a 6-inch plant, that's the most you can get out of it. Number one, you got some soil problems. But number two, you don't want to take them more than half. Matter of fact, if I only had 6-inch deep grass, I wouldn't let those cows stay on that for a 24-hour period. And we're going to cover mob grazing, which is real beneficial, but not in this one because we're already getting along. Okay? You have to talk to your cows. They'll tell you about the condition of your pasture. Now, what I like to do is up by the barn, keep a trough up there and mineral blocks and a salt block. That way they can talk to me. I can go out there and watch the cows. They'll come up and get a drink. They might go over and lick at the mineral block. But if they're eating off of good, deep-rooted pasture, they're getting the minerals they need. And their body tells them, oh, we don't need that. And they walk away. They go back out and start eating again. They might get a little salt. They do like to have that. But for the mineral blocks, they're pretty much going to sit there. If those cattle start tearing up a mineral block, really getting after it, warning bells need to go off in your head. You need to get out to the pasture, see where they're grazing at, because you got a mineral deficiency out there in that pasture. It may be that area is minerally deficient. Okay, it could be that area Your root structure is not deep enough. Here again, you use tubular radishes to correct that. Things of this nature. Watch your cattle. Watch your livestock. Know what they're doing. Check that triangle of death on that cow. If they're eating well and that's full, that's a good sign. But if it's full and they're over there just licking the heck out of that mineral block, they're not getting the proper nutrients out of that grass. And you need to go out and find out why. Okay? Because I've seen where cattle would leave a block sitting there forever, not hardly touching it. And then all of a sudden they've moved into a different area and they're hitting that block hard. That tells me that particular area where they're grazing has a problem. And I need to fix that problem. I'll start off with the tubular radishes. Okay? So pay attention. But one of the things I'm going to touch on here in this last minute or so is our bodies need certain things. We need all those minerals. We need vitamins. We need A, B6, B12, D, E, so forth, beta carotene. All these things are produced by grazing animals. All of it. It is very difficult on a plant-based diet to get all that. So you're going to have to supplement. If you're a vegan, you're going to have to supplement with vitamins to really get what your body needs. Or you can eat meat, have dairy, okay, but properly raised. And you'll get everything your body needs out of an environmentally friendly animal. Your research that you're looking at that is put out by most vegan organizations and so forth is flawed. They're looking at an industrial feedlot. They're looking at an industrial linear grass-fed beef. Doesn't work. Okay? We have to have a true deep-rooted pastured animal. This thing's went way long. I've got to find a way to shorten them because that's just pastures, folks. And there's so much more to what's wrong with our system. I'll try to break it down into even smaller chunks. Those Roots from Tennessee Homestead. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I hope you find this useful. Understand your pasture is important to the quality of the food you're going to produce. Period. No sidestepping.